Cool, man.
All right. Well, how's it? How you hanging in out there through everything?
Good, man. I dig this quarantine thing, man. You know, anybody who's had the chance to do a significant period of time, aka like incarcerated, this is really like it's a fucking walk in the park.
This ain't nothing, huh?
This ain't shit.
Yeah. It's just like that. You just take it back to, you know, I'm good at being institutionalized. Right. I spent most of my life in fucking treatment centers and or jail or prison. So like, this is a come up compared to that. and I, you know, I'm into the whole introvert shit, man.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm digging about this quarantine is I'm saving a shit ton of money, so I'm loving that.
Right. Right.
Well, I just fucking refinanced my house, you know. I'm like taking care of shit.
Yeah.
Well, he's single and no kids, whereas I've got 2 kids, girlfriend and ex-wife. So it seems to me this shit's been more expensive. So I'm kind of
fucking right. I'm with him. I just have my 2 cats, man.
I got my dog. That's it. My little dog. That's all I got.
And I forgot I got a dog and a cat.
Yeah. You got your cat, right?
Yeah. Right there's.
Oh, there you go.
They're around here somewhere. I'm like a fucking cat fanatic, man. A crazy old cat, man. I used to say, jokingly enough, that I wouldn't leave my house if my cats could talk. Careful what you ask for, motherfucker, because sometimes you get it.
Right.
I love that. I love that.
Comes to fruition. That sounds like me when I used to drink. Anyways, hey, knocking doors down. Brandon Novak with us, of course.
Have we began already?
You know what? We just kind of step into
it.
So
that's cool.
Like, hey, here it is.
We'll just bullshit and get thrown right into it. Yeah.
Skateboarding.
I prefer it that way, so that's rad.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Jackass fame. Mikey and I are both fans of you. I had no balance, Brandon, so anytime I tried to skate, I busted my ass, whereas Mikey was really talented. But I got into a lot of stupid shit too. It was alcohol. So sure. That's kind of my area, and so we're honored to speak with you because A, being fans of you, B, we're glad you're fucking alive, and what you're doing with your life now and helping others. So it just it aligns with what we're doing. The whole mission of Knocking Doors Down started with the owner of this company. He wrote a book on his 13 years of addiction with cocaine. Decided he was going to put out a book. He knew that I had my struggles with alcohol. He pulled me.
What's his book called?
Knocking Doors Down.
Okay.
We'll get one out to you, actually. We got you on the mailing list to send you one. His name's Carlos Vieira, and he gave me this opportunity, pulled me out of 20 years of radio and said, hey, you know, you talked about wanting to serve and do something a little more purposeful. And I went, all right, bold move. Let's do this shit. So, you know, here we are.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to like you alluded to, being alive, to be here today to talk to you. Because, you know, I go to I'm heavily involved in my sobriety and I surround myself with, you know, not all the time, but just the way that I live kind of attracts either like sober people or people that just like want to do better in life.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I like stay submerged in, you know, in health and wellness. Let's just put it that way. And in doing so, I also attend, you know, 12-step meetings. And I'll hear sometimes the occasional man or woman put their hand up and say, you know, I worked real hard for this seat in AA or whatever, right? And in my mind, I'm like, no, you fucking didn't. No, you didn't. Like, you know who worked hard for my seat? My mother, my employers, my friends, my fucking co-workers, because if justice was due, I'd be dead years ago.
Right.
So I'm merely here on borrowed time and strictly as a direct result of God's grace and mercy. Because again, right, like if justice was due, fuck.
Yeah, I can
sure.
relate to that. I had a breaking point for me that you know, and I thought, you know, my marriage was already done, and thank goodness the kid's mom and I have a good relationship now. But wrecked a car.
I thought you were gonna say my marriage is done already, and thank goodness. I'm like, okay.
Well, I think we're both thankful because if had we stayed married, we'd both probably be dead. But I destroyed a car, and we go the next day to pick it up at the lot, and the guy goes, "Who died?" And I go, "No, I was in this." And he goes, "You're not hurt at all." And I go, "No, I walked away. I crawled out the window." And he's like, "Bullshit. I've seen cars like this, and it's because they're turning it over because the cops got to, do their investigation because there was a body pulled out of it or something." I went, "No, I walked away, man." And so I can relate to that all too well. But Brandon, let's talk a little bit, because you've noted that addiction started for you pretty early on. What was kind of like childhood? Where do you think it was? Because I come from a background of addiction on both sides of my family.
Well, all I can do is give you my experience, right? Like I'm not a doctor. I don't have PhDs. I haven't done specific studies to come to the equations or results that I'm at with it. But I believe that my addiction was passed down because I was genetically predisposed, right? My father was an addict. His father was an addict. I'm the only son by my father. My brother and sister are by a different man. My mother and that whole side, they can have a glass of wine, finish half, and totally go about their business. I believe I was genetically predisposed, and I also believe there were a lot of other equations that played into the factor, right? I was, at the age of 7, I got my first skateboard, and that skateboard raised me, and skateboarding culture raised me, right?
Absolutely.
Because my father was a rather unsavory type of fella, if you will. He never had a job a day in his life. He taught me one thing: if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. He ran with the Hells Angels, and he unfortunately succumbed to his disease of addiction and is no longer with us.
Oh wow.
But at the age, so from a very young age, I was basically raised in a single family home. My mother carried us. My father was around just enough to let me know that he wasn't around. And so my mother was, she got a job at the age of 15 at Mercy Hospital, drawing blood for $5 a pop, a phlebotomist, if you will. Again, being a single parent household, and she was fucking doing the whole deal for me, my brother, and my sister, because my father was very undependable and unreliable, the direct results of addiction. She busted her ass to become the woman that I could only aspire and pray to be. And what that looks like is went from the age of 15, drawing blood for $5 a pop, to literally working her way up the ladder to, as of 2 years ago, retiring as a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital.
Wow.
Second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history, right? So that woman is like everything. But in saying that, my mother was working full time, right, to get us out of the position that a lot of things played a part in us getting in. And my father would come around and cause problems. So I was attracted to the skateboard and the skateboard world. So older guys helped raise me, right? Because they could drive, they'd pick me up, take me, and take me under their wing. And with that being said, on the off days that my father would show up, right, he would like practice behaviors such as at 7, taking me to the strip joint with him. And when he's in the back conducting his business, they'd leave me at the bar, and they'd prop me up on a stool, and they'd pour shots of ginger ale and Coca-Cola into those little shot glasses, right? So I would do the shots, the girls would dance for me, and my father would give me that look of approval, right? So that could potentially be grooming me into what I became. Who knows?
Right.
A little bit further down the road, I had to come home and witness my father cut my mother's throat at a young age. So there was like a lot of variables that could come into play as to what I could pinpoint created or caused my outcome. I don't know. I can allude to it, but that's only because after doing a lot of internal work on myself, I've learned that my life is lived forward and learned backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
At the time, I couldn't see it. Now, again, God willing, in 2 or 3 weeks, May 25th, I'll be celebrating 5 years of continuous sobriety. But having remained sober long enough that I can look back and recognize the synchronicity in life's events that have led me to the here and now. Right. If that doesn't fucking prove to to me, a higher power than I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations on coming up on 5 years. And something I can relate to that you talk about when you're talking about the strip club. And I know that, you know, in other interviews and conversations that I can relate, like I was exposed to pornography at a very early age. So for me, I kind of found, and I know you talked about kind of finding that love. I think I had a real parallel with you on that of kind of, all right, hey, this thing, you know, this woman, it ends, it's fine. It's just another part of that addiction that love can play, or lust, or however you want to look into that. How did you kind of rebound from that area and getting some bearings there? Or are you still just kind of like, nah, I don't know, relationships not for me? I mean, I'm asking for my own personal selfisness and
Sure.
up to you almost as a mentor, because I'm behind you by about 3 years. So
Amazing, man.
yeah.
Nevertheless, it's still a fucking miracle.
Mhm.
You know, it's rather ironic now, right? But when I was drinking and when I was drugging, which was from the end of 16, beginning of 17 until 35, right? The only period of abstinence that I was able to sustain was due to my 1 year of incarceration. So that was by force, not by choice, that I remained abstinent. But with all that being said, 16, let's just say 17 to 35, I always had a woman, right? I always had a woman. I never not had a woman, right? Because really looking back on it now is, you know, as alcoholics, as addicts, we can get shit. We just can never keep shit.
Right.
So I could come up with a couple bucks, you know, I could pay the rent, the bills every month, but I would never know how to like balance a checkbook, pay things on time. Like I'm so disconnected from reality and or abnormality that the abnormal has become the normal, and paying fucking electrical bills is not normal in my life at that time. So really having a woman in my life was almost like it was a lifeline, right? It was a necessity. It was a survival mechanism because I was incapable of doing those things, which would allow me to keep a roof over my head, a shower to get into, a bed to sleep in, a refrigerator open. I was not capable of producing those results. So I would always keep a woman, right? And I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. But looking back now, I see that.
Right.
Because the reason why I see that is, I mean, I've been engaged twice, and clearly they continue to get between me and my addiction, so they had to fucking go.
Yeah.
And women over women over women over women. And now I'm in the best condition I've ever been in, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, you name it. I'm aces across the board, and I'm fucking single. The reality is like I'm okay with being with me for the first time in my life. And again, after doing these a lot of internal work, which has allowed me to reach the desired external results, what I've learned is that the most important thing in my fucking life is my time. And it's the most valuable thing. And I will not lower my standards because there's no reason for me to do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
no, and I can relate to that through the whole thing. You know, I know for me, like when my peak was post my divorce, and it was, you know, not only as addicts do we waste our time with our disease, which it's you know, it's so ironic. It's a disease that, although we are fighting it, we're also welcoming it, and we just choose it. And we're like, hey, this is, you know, I always loved a Metallica song. God, is it Frantic, where James Hetfield says, my lifestyle determines my death style. And we're just cool with it. Like, I'll drink myself to death, or I'll snort this to death, or I'll fuck this to death, or whatever it is.
it's not personal. It's just business at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
It becomes our norm. Like you said, the abnormal becomes our normal. And it's such a weird thing to be so
much so that I think you're fucking mental if you don't see it the way that I see it. I think you're the fool. That, you know.
Yeah. I remember I was working in professional wrestling, and I'm with a buddy, and we went down, did a televised show here, and we're in Central California. And on the way, you know, afterwards, it was standard. Everybody has a couple of drinks, and we just stop at the convenience store and grab a 12-pack, and here we are, just driving back. afterwards just sipping beers, and I told someone about that. I'm like, it's the old days, like the old school wrestlers used to do. And they go, yeah, this isn't the fucking 60s and 70s. Do you realize you could be dead? I'm like, woo, Ric Flair used to do it, and doing the whole thing, or, oh yeah, macho doing these guys did that. And to me, it was like, who the fuck are you to tell me that? That's cool. That's badass. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing about our disease.
But again, at that point in time, when I find myself in those positions, the reality is that I'm completely incapable of being in solution mode because I'm so consumed with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to, usually for someone like me, I have to be rescued from myself, right? Because I'm not the guy who comes up with like these very careful, calculated, sensible decisions that will help my welfare, right? Like I usually have to be divinely inconvenienced, aka a pair of handcuffs, aka a dirty piss, a violation of a parole or a probation officer, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're coming up on 5 years sober, May 25th, you said, right?
Correct.
Awesome. So what I want to know is, what was your what was, okay, fuck, I've had enough, done, and stuck with that? Because I know you've been in and out a few times. So what was the actual just breaking point to where, fuck this, I'm over it, never going back, I'm going to get my life together?
I've never walked into a facility like, this is it, I'm done, I throw the towel in, I jack.
Right.
Correction. There are a few times I went in like that, right, in the beginning, but and those were my real sincere intentions. But as you were just alluding to, how powerful this disease called addiction or alcoholism is that we possess, right? It's the only disease that lies to us in our own voice and tells us that we don't have this disease, and it makes us believe the unbelievable. Right. It's not like we have this strange voice that appears in our head and we can be like, oh no, stranger danger. No, it's our fucking voice. So it seems believable.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened for me was, again, life lived forward, learn backwards. At the time that these events were taking place, I could not see how important or life-changing they were. Mm-hmm. Now, after having remained sober long enough, I can clearly see where my higher power was doing for me what I could not do for myself. But the number one thing that really gave birth to the rest of these divine inconveniences or conveniences, depending upon your perception, if you will, was that the heroin and the cocaine stopped working. That was the first thing that happened, right? Because I found myself as a 35-year-old homeless heroin addict who resided on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, letting men blow me for $40 to secure another bag of dope. My mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. I had just woken up from being on life support. At this point in time, I had been in 12 inpatient treatment centers. I lost count of outpatients and detoxes. Medevaced 4 different hospitals in 4 different states for 4 different overdoses. My mother had sold 3 homes to financially pay for me to go to 2 different treatment centers. Despite having done some things in life that people would equate to success or happiness, some might even dream of, right? Touring the world with Tony Hawk, designing my pro model at the age of 15. In those movies, Jackass, TV shows, Viva La Bam, a published author of an addiction memoir that was wildly successful.
5150 Apparel, lifestyle with a purpose.
Despite all those successful accolades I just shared with you, I found myself as a homeless heroin addict who wanted to kill himself on a daily basis, but I didn't want to hurt myself in the process.
Right.
I was horrible at suicide because I kept fucking waking up, and I was at a position in life where I was so low the curve looked like a skyscraper. My worldly possessions, everything that I owned in this world, consisted of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant. It fit into this duffel bag that I carried around that doubled as my pillow. a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order that my mother just had served on her 35-year-old son to be vacated from her home because like I was gonna kill her in the house, like literally the way I live. And prior to that point, it was okay, right? Because no matter how bad of a position and or situation I found myself in, I load up that tool, right? And every time without fail, I put that thing in me, and this delusional effect is now approved. This delusional effect is now, this delusional effect now appears, which will allow me to escape the reality that I, Brandon Novak, have created for myself. So standing on the corner, letting a fucking man blow me for another bag, it not only comes like manageable, it becomes like, tolerable, dealable, not that bad. I put that thing in me, I escape my reality. Yeah. All fair is in love and war, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Not personal, it's just business, and
right.
And that's cool, and that showed up for me every time without fail. I cop that bag, I put that thing in me, I immediately escape my reality. Not that bad. Ignorance is bliss. But what do I do when I'm a 35-year-old homeless heroin addict who I literally every day, my last 3 months of my run, I would go out and buy $180 worth of heroin and cocaine. And I would load that tool up, so much so that if I put another drop of water in it, the plunger would come out. Like it was full to the brim. I'd put it in me, and that delusional effect was no longer being produced, meaning that I could no longer, despite how much dope and coke I shot, I could no longer escape the reality that I, Brandon Novak, had created for myself. So that moment of clarity that they talk about in sobriety was not only happening when I was sober, but when I'm shooting up full time.
Yeah.
It's not fucking work. What do I do?
Yeah.
Right. And so that kind of set off a chain of events that ended me here. That was the first and foremost.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, I know I can relate when I started to look at, not for me, it was not only did I change the way that I was looking at reality and my perception of it, but I started to shift it for others that were even sober and how they dealt with me and that interaction. And there was a thing for me that clicked in my head was I've fucked up a lot of shit and people. And it's like, it's one thing if I want to abuse myself and destroy myself, but my kids, these people that love me and that I genuinely love, don't deserve to be robbed of their sanity, let alone to see me deteriorate to nothing. And I think I probably had another good 5-6 years if I kept it up, that's where it was going to go, or to hardcore drugs, which, I had never touched. Not that alcohol isn't hardcore.
I was just going to say that. Like, I work in the field and I get people help that they need and deserve, and they call me and I'm like, all right, what are you using? They're like, just alcohol. And I'm always like, look, yes, it's a different substance, yet it yields us the same exact results.
Right.
Hopeless, helpless, disconnected, disassociated, isolated, full of fear, consumed with panic, and not knowing what to do. And the only thing that will provide some ease and comfort is another drink, another shot. Same fucking thing, really.
Yeah. Or I've had friends with sexual addiction, same kind of thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Another chick, 2 chicks, whatever, and when he went through getting some help, it was, 2 or 3 prostitutes at a time or whatever it is. Or we recently spoke with a gentleman that was gambling, same kind of thing. And all these situations. So Brandon, you thank goodness, and you get into rehab. So when's the point when it finally started to stick and you started to really see that, boy, not only the way I perceive the world, but myself is starting to change? And barriers, for one, addicts, no barriers at all. Because for me, that was a huge, huge thing. And I think my childhood and some of the sexual things that occurred really fucked up my barriers, and having good, strong barriers, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Sure. Again, right? Like, I couldn't see it at the time, but now I see this as my higher power showing up and doing for me what I could not do for myself, right? So the very first thing that took place is the drugs no longer produced that effect, right? And I'm not even fucking bullshitting. Like, I could not load that thing up enough back to back to back and that effect was no longer being produced. And I don't know why. Wasn't like the dope was shit and they were burnt. No, it just, I don't know. But having entered my first treatment center at the age of 17, right? Now walking into my 13th at 35, I had been around recovery, sobriety, 12-step meetings, treatment centers long enough to know that there was a way up and out of my position, right? Because I saw it working for you guys. Yeah. My disease told me that was not the case for me because I was so internally unique, right? Like you guys didn't watch your father slit your mother's throat at the age of 8. You guys, your father didn't take you to the strip joint and make you drink shots of ginger ale and Coca-Cola like my father did. You guys didn't end up in these movies that broke box office records that allowed, you to kind of party longer without any repercussions, right? That's all the shit my disease was telling me as to why I was incapable of getting sober, right? I saw it work for you, but it didn't work for me.
Right.
So I knew that there was a way up and out of my position, provided I got the fuck out of my way, right? I did know that. And the other thing was that I knew that I was never, I'm a smart guy, man. I come from better. I know better. I pride myself on being an outside of the box kind of thinker. And I never once in my life was like, yeah, I'm just going to get high until I die. Like, this is what I'm going to do until I grow old and die. I remember I was living with Bam at the time, and we'd finished filming for the day, and I was going to meet them at the bar, and we were going to go fucking party and do God knows what all night long. Mm-hmm. And I would show up like a little late, and they're like, what are you doing? Why are you always late? And I'm like, well, because I wanted to go to this AA meeting first. And they're like, why? Right? And I just knew that something was going to take at some point, at some time. Either I was going to get sober or I was going to die of an overdose. There was no like, this is my calling for years.
Yeah.
So then the dope stops working. A series of events take place. I know that recovery is possible because I've been. And then a last ditch effort, a Hail Mary, if you will. This woman decides that she's going to fly me all expense paid trip to Fort Lauderdale, right? Uh-huh. And now in doing this is right when my mother served me with that restraining order at the end of my run. I had nowhere to go. And she was going to buy me the flight. And I told her I would come if she could provide me with some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine. She says, no problem. And I don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale at this point, right? Because I know that it's going to end really, really bad. Right? I just have this intuition that things are about to get really fucking off the rails. And I get up to the ticket counter, and my heart is beating 10 million miles a minute, right? Like I just shot 20 kilos of cocaine. My heart will not, because I don't want to go, right? I know that it's going to end really bad. Like almost like I did it before in a past life. But the reality is the disease from which I possess does not allow me the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to sit this trip out, right? Because she has my heroin, she has my cocaine, she has my Xanax and some wine. So my disease is like, yeah, that's real cute, bitch, but get the fuck up there and get your ticket kind of deal.
Yeah.
So I get up to the counter and the woman takes one look at me and she says, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? And I said, no. And she said, I believe that you are. Therefore, you will not fly anywhere for 72 hours, right? Not like the next flight out or tomorrow morning. 3 days, for Christ's sakes, right? Now, two things that I've learned in my career is that I would never win an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent.
Right.
They say go. How I perceived this event that was taking place at that time, May 25th, 2015, how I perceived this was like this. The woman, the TSA agent, knows who I am. Her son or daughter suffers with the disease of addiction and or alcoholism. This woman's blaming her kid's disease on me. How dare her piss on my fucking parade? Right? That's how I perceived. The reality was I had just tried to cop some dope before I got on this flight. And when I went to cop some dope from the boys, All I had on was a pair of dress slacks with minus underwear because like I'm a homeless addict. I don't fucking kid myself thinking that I'm gonna wash these underwear and find these imaginary dressers in an imaginary alley and take, fuck you.
Yeah.
I live to use and I used to live at that point. So I have these at once point in time nice dress slacks if you overlook the cigarette burns because I fucking nod out. I have no underwear on. I have this button-up shirt on, and I have these at once point in time nice pair of Brooks Brothers shoes, but I had lost a shoestring along the way, right? Because I used the one to tie up with the shoe.
Sure.
So when I go to cop from the boys see fit to rob me as opposed to serve me. And when they rob me, they rip my front and my back pockets completely out. Now my dick and my ass are completely exposed. They rip my shirt open, and the only button that stays buttoned is this very top button. And I got these shoes on with one shoestring, and I'm now roaming the streets of West Baltimore looking like a gay East LA cholo gangbanger, right? So that does not go as planned. So I get to the airport, and I attempt to get my ticket to board this flight. I saw the situation as the woman blaming her kid's disease on me. She knows who I am. How dare her piss on my parade? The reality is anybody dressed the way I was dressed would not be allowed to walk outside, let alone board a flight anywhere in the world. Because I didn't have the privilege of changing. I told you all I owned was 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order. I don't have the ability to put on underwear. It's not. So what happened was, right, and this is the second thing that had taken, a lot of little things in the interim, but this is the second big thing that had taken place, was that God had dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent and did for me what I could not do for myself. Because I told you I did not want to get on that flight. Like my heart was out of my chest, but I don't have the ability to say, no, this is not a safe plan that I'm about to embark on.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not see, again, that's divinely inconvenience number 2, right? And I get out of line and I call my sponsor, Lex, and I said, Lex, I'm stranded at BWI airport and I want to kill myself. And he said, no, you're going to get on a train. You're going to come back to Philadelphia. We, meaning like a whole bunch of sober people, are going to leave our cookouts. We're going to leave our loved ones. We're going to leave our family members. We're going to come pick someone like you up who's been diagnosed as unhelpable and unfixable, right? And what happens is they believed in me way before I believed in myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were showing up for me way before I was showing up for myself. They were praying for me way before I was praying for my fucking self. And I get on a train and I listen, right? And because I knew that my way no longer worked. The dope no longer works. The woman at the counter refuses to let me fly for 3 days. Nobody wants anything to do with me. My assistant will barely answer a call of mine at this point, except just to see if I'm alive. Like everyone has had to now love me from a distance for their safety, right? Because I'm at the point now where if you tell me you love me, I equate that to $10 and I'm going to make your life a living fucking hell.
Mm-hmm.
So the series of events take place. I go back to Philly. They pick me up. They allow me to spend the night at their house. They take me to this treatment center. This treatment center I had been to 4 previous times. And each 4 previous times I would sit in the same chair with the same intake coordinator. And she would say, okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance will cover you for 90 days. And I would say, in theory, 90 days sounds great, but like in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day kind of fella, right?
Right.
And she would laugh at me each and every time and say, sweetheart, you have no idea. Anything and everything that you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because you will lose it. And again, I would allude to my resume, right? Clearly, you haven't read it, right? Because I'm a former guy who was designing his pro model for Pal Peralta. I've been in these movies that break box office records. I'm a New York Times top 10 selling author who's written an addiction memoir, basically, which in my mind is the same as the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how I equated it, right? Because I'm receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from people all over the world saying how my book saved their life, and now they have like 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah.
Saving their lives, but I can't keep a needle out of mine. So something happened different. Something different happened May 25th, 2015. I'm sitting in the same chair with the same intake coordinator. And I had finally I had finally been demoralized in just such a fashion. I had been beaten into a state of reasonableness from drugs and alcohol, that the same woman gave me the same offer that she had given me 4 previous times. Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90 days. And this day, the same woman giving me the same offer, I couldn't even come back with a counter offer, right? Because if I said no, it entailed an explanation as to why I couldn't do 90 days. For the first time in my life, my addiction, thank fucking God, beat me speechless. I couldn't even talk. I was so just done. I was tired of my own voice at that point. Right? I was really tired of it. I told you I cried wolf a lot of times. It wasn't that I didn't believe it, but it's the power of addiction and alcoholism. I believe what I was saying, but the reality was I wasn't willing to do the work that was entailed for me to get the desired results. Sobriety. So she looks at me and she says, sweetheart, you're in no condition to do your intake. Get up to detox and I'll see you in 4 days. I walk up to detox. And I'm immediately met by this 19-year-old tech, an employee of the treatment center who's like a glorified babysitter for a bunch of addicts and alcoholics in the treatment center. And he looks at me, he said, Mr. Novak, you're back. And I said, aren't you a fucking genius? Nothing gets past you, does it, boy? And he said, Mr. Novak, I regret to inform you, but your clothes are not rehab oriented. You need some underwear. You need some sweatpants. You need some slides. Because the fact of the matter was I didn't have the ability to, or the privilege to change out of those clothes because I didn't have that. But I remembered in one of my many, many attempts at one of my many, many treatment centers, someone along the way saying that a grateful addict will never use again. A grateful alcoholic will never use again. And when this 19-year-old kid whose head I want to fucking knock off because he's very happy and he has this lust for life. And right now, nothing is happy in my world. I want to fucking burn everything to the ground, me included. I'm just too scared to get hurt in the process of doing so. Yeah. So I'm stuck with him. And he said, come downstairs to the donations room. We're going to see if we can find you a pair of used underwear, a pair of sweatpants, a pair of slides. You guys told me a grateful addict would never use again. I had never prayed for such simple articles of clothing in my life. The reality is I just didn't have them. So that gratitude was starting to show its face. Yeah. So let me paint this picture for you. I'm a 35-year-old homeless heroin addict who comes from better, who knows better. My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. My father died as a direct result of the disease of addiction. I live with that after-school special. I live with that cautionary tale of what I was never going to become. I actually excelled at everything that I did to prove a point that I would never be my father. First skateboarder to be endorsed by Gatorade. Designing my pro model for Pal Peralta, touring the world with Tony Hawk. End up in these movies that break box office records. Become a New York Times top 10 selling author who had written a book on addiction. Did some things in life that people equate to success or happiness, some even dream of doing. The reality of what my life really looks like is May 25th, 2015. I just walked into my 13th inpatient treatment center. Just woke up from being on life support for 7 days. I've long lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother has bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. I've been medevac to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states for 4 different overdoses. I reside on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, prostituting my body just to get another bag. My worldly possessions consist of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant. Fits into that bag, doubles as my pillow, a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order that my mother had just served to get me out of her house. She had sold 3 homes to financially pay for me to go to 2 different treatment centers. At the end of my run, she had nothing left to give, so she simply went to God with one prayer, and that prayer consisted of, God, please cure him, God, please kill him, or God, please kill me because I can't take it anymore. I find myself standing in the basement next to a 19-year-old kid in this dark cement, right? This treatment center was a state-ran facility that cost me $3 to get into, right? It's this dark, brick, kind of like wet, damp basement. I got to take his cell phone and hold the light so he can thumb through these boxes and look for used underwear. How the fuck did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
How? I had goals. I had dreams. I had ambitions. How did I get here? I got here because I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart. I got here because I sat there and I compared out. I got here because I sat there and I possessed that job that consisted of knowing everything. I got here because I sat there and I was defiant by nature. I hated authority and I would never conform unless it became my idea. So when you politely suggested to me what I should do, I politely suggested to you why you should fuck off, because I possess that job that consists of knowing everything. And my resume states that I know some shit.
Yeah.
I am 5150.
I have the power to choose my own path.
When you're 5150, you choose to stand out.
You choose to believe in yourself and trust your strength will carry you through.
Choose to strive for greatness.
Choose to do good.
And help make the world a better place. Choose to be passionate enough to chase your dreams.
I am 5150.
I'm in this basement. No word in the English dictionary could properly suffice how fucking hopeless I felt about my case at that point in time and life. Add the word less to everything, and that's what I had felt and become at that point. Little did I know, standing in that basement of that facility where I thought my life had never gotten any worse, was going to turn out to be the best day of my life, right? As I stand next to this 19-year-old kid using his phone to shine light into this box as he's thumbing through looking for used underwear, and I'm praying to God that he finds them. He doesn't find them, but what he finds is a pair of size 40 women's sweatpants with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. I don't know how alert or attentive you are, but I'm not a woman and I do not wear a size 13, but two things that were forever going to change my contract or course of my direction in life were taking place as I knew it. Again, I was so consumed with the problem that I could not see that the solution was happening, right? The very first thing that took place was at that moment in time, I had the realization, right? Because I possessed that job that consisted of knowing everything for years. At that point in time, standing next to that kid as he's thumbing through boxes, I'm praying to God he finds used underwear. I come to the realization that, you know what I do know? Is that I don't fucking know. And my very best thinking places me in this position time after time after time. I couldn't even lie to my own self anymore about the reality that I kept creating for myself. I couldn't even do it. And the second thing that happened is that I was directly met by the God of my understanding, face to face, as a result of experiencing that gift of desperation. The pain had become so great that the God of my understanding had appeared in that basement, G-O-D, gift of desperation, that I'm standing next to this 19-year-old kid praying to God he finds me used underwear. And when he doesn't find me the used underwear, but he finds me the woman's sweatpants with the size 40 with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals, he hands me the clothing. I had never been so grateful for such simple articles of clothing in my life, right? I was overcome with a sense of willingness unlike anything that a human could ever provide for me, right? I told you I had just met the God of my understanding as a direct result of that gift of desperation. And with that, I take the women's clothing and I go upstairs, I get a shower, I get that Baltimore City smell off me. Never so excited to put women's clothing on in my life. I stay in that facility for 90 days, right? In that facility, I had learned that like my mentality will always create my reality. And then my therapist told me in group one day, if you change your perception, you can change your world. And with that being said, that my defects, the very same thing that was killing me on a daily basis, could become my assets with the slightest shift of perception. Hence me sitting here with you lovely gentlemen today, sharing my message of promise, hope, and freedom that does not consist of a fucking drink or a drug.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's Brandon. It goes back to the first interview that I did was with a gentleman who's a documentarian making a film called Raising Hope, Eric Christensen, and he said, you know, our greatest adversity becomes our greatest advantage. And that, you know, I'm glad you shared that silver lining, that moment, because it really is beautiful, you know, because we wanted people to understand that you had such a story of hurt and struggle, but you've started to do so much good with it now. And that influences two guys that are fans of yours for, you know, different reasons, that we were so pumped to talk to you because we know the good that you are doing now. And it shows through, and it shows through in the transparency too, which I think shows great strength of character.
But the most important thing about what I share with you for the viewers is that at the time when those events were taking place, I was incapable of seeing the importance of it, right? Like I had to continue to stay par of the course, right? Coming up on 5 years sobriety, having remained sober long enough that I can look back and recognize the synchronicity in life's events. All this, right? Everything that you see me in for how you view me, what you think of me, your perception or perspective of me is simply derived as a whole bunch of fucking pain. The pain just became so great that I found myself willing to do whatever you suggested. And with that came an open mind because I knew that my way no longer worked.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that was a big moment of confrontation for me was, and I can relate to what you're saying, was this all-knowing, look at this, I've done that, and the people that I was directly affecting, like, you don't know shit, you haven't done shit in comparison, when it couldn't have been further from the truth. And I had such a magical gift of standing in my own way, and I've had to give up that power and just go, I don't know. Tell me what's best for me, because I don't have a fucking clue.
And that's it, right? I told you I was tired of my own voice at that point, walking into that facility. Like, I was just so done.
Right.
I remember when I was at the assessment station and they were trying to find me a bed in a rehab, right? Because I as my disease progressed, so did my treatment center stays. In the beginning, it was like aromatherapy, music therapy, yoga, private chef. At the end, I'm in an assessment center. And they're trying to find me a free bed somewhere. And as I'm sitting in there, I literally couldn't even sit in my chair. I was so sick, right? I was so ill. I'm shitting, I'm pissing, I'm throwing up all at the same time. So I walked in there, and it was like an outpatient place, and people were sitting in their chairs like how you and I are today, normal, like, you know, getting ready to go to their therapy. And I was so far from that. That I went and I laid in the corner under these chairs in a fetal position with my back against them. And I remember thinking, if I could just get in this wall, that would be good. Like, I just, and I remember them trying to get me a bed, and they're calling around everywhere because this is Memorial Day, 2015. And I thought to myself, if they can't get me a bed, the very best that I can come up with is I'm going to walk out here, and right outside their door is a big thing of shrubs. And I'm going to lay between the shrub and the brick building, you know, so no one will see me. That's just, I was just done. I was done. I'm just trying to paint this picture for you of how done I was. And for the first time in my life, I walked into that 13th facility with no plan at all. And that lack of plan has produced the best of plans. Right? Because it allowed me to just get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah.
Right? And then when I got into there, I adhered to the lessons and the suggestions they were giving me. And what they told me is resentments are the #1 offender to an alcoholic. You harbor enough resentments, it will kill you because you will drink again, right? And now what I learned is that expectations are nothing but unfulfilled resentments. So I had to stop placing these expectations on people, places, and things. And the reality is there is no their part. The only thing that I will ever be able to control is me, my thinking, my attitude, my behavior. And I am the problem. The sooner that I can accept that, the better and easier my life will become. Because if I expect you to think as I think you should think, say as I think you should say, and feel as I think you should feel, it's not a matter of if you'll let me down, it's when you'll let me down. And I will immediately have resentments, and I'm not the privileged that can harbor a resentment. right? Because the scariest thing for me is not that I'll fucking drink and shoot dope again and die. That's actually kind of welcomed if I were to relapse. What scares me to fucking sobriety, if you will, is that I go out and I drink and I drug and I don't die. And I have to wake up every day and use against my will and do things that I don't want to do to get another bag. That's fucking hell.
Yeah, and it truly is. And that is, again, the irony of the disease of addiction is we welcome because of it. It's not that we welcome it, but we accept that eventually that's the part of it. Because I think Nikki Sixx put it best. I had a conversation with him years ago after he wrote the Heroin Diaries. Said 2 things happen with addicts: you get clean or you die.
That's it.
That's it. That's it.
You know that. So I pride myself on being a realist now, right? Like, I help people. I'm on the front lines, and
yeah,
people call me. Right? They're like, I'm not sure if I'm ready, if I'm not. And I said, okay, well, here's what I know. I said, people don't end up on the phone with me when their life is great. People end up on the phone with me when their life is shit or headed in that direction. Yeah. Keep in mind, I didn't find you. You called me, right? That's number 1. And number 2, if you've ended up on the phone with me, that means that you are now incapable of drinking or drugging without repercussions. Meaning that repercussions have taken place due to your addiction or alcoholism, which have led you to call me, right? Yeah. So when that happens, that allows me to know that I promise you, your issue will be addressed. It absolutely will. And this is how it gets addressed, one of 2 ways. God willing, you address your issue. You accept the help that I'm offering. You go to treatment. You save your life. You get things that you have no idea that exist in life. Or, God forbid, I get a phone call from your family member saying, thanks for trying to help my son, but he didn't make it. Yeah. And I get a lot of those phone calls. And I promise you, your issue will be addressed. It's just up to you on what side of the fence you want to be on when it's addressed.
Right.
So I'll be here. You call. Hopefully you call and it's not like a family member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's the exciting thing of sobriety is that when you, like you said, your perception, and when we get a look at it, it's like, wow, life is pretty badass. Because you know what, I may not have these this delusion of this or that, or as you were talking about, perceived success. But man, I've got my sobriety and I've got my clear head, and I'm getting out of my way, and I can actually feel and embrace real gifts of life, little moments.
Yeah.
Little moments, whatever it is. I remember the other day I was at the store and there's a little old lady, with everything going on while we're talking to Brandon here. Of course, we are amidst this sheltering in place. Reached up and grabbed her the thing that she needed. And she's like, God must have sent you here to help me. And it's like, oh shit, I'm going to go cry now. I'm going to go cry.
Totally.
Cry. Because if not, I probably would have been, drunk at that point, or I would have drunk myself to death. And I most certainly would have been
a dear friend of mine who's sober, she always says, be grateful for the ability to feel.
Yeah.
Because that can be overlooked so often.
Yeah.
Just the little things in life, man.
Yeah, I found for me, it was alcoholism was weird. It was rather to numb or to feel, but when I say feel, it didn't always mean that it was a positive emotion release. Although I could get that at times too. It's like, yeah, all right, and love this chick and she's so amazing, or my friends were having a great time at this concert. But I also went over to the anger, and then eventually they just went like this. They folded into each other, and there was nothing.
Nothing.
Either direction.
Well, I think you just explained the textbook fucking definition of addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah.
It progressively gets worse.
Yeah.
It starts out as a party, right? And then at the end, it becomes a full-time job that pays nothing but pain and misery. And usually, as you just said, we're left with ourselves, by ourselves, crying and looking at ourselves.
Hey, Brandon, well, if people want to know more about what you got going on, because there is so much positive, which, I would like you to talk maybe about, if you're at liberty to, a situation of someone that did come to you, that it really touched your heart on the work that they've been doing, and that it really maybe cemented for you that your sobriety was paying off and helping others.
Are you saying, wait, can you rephrase that? Like, do you mean someone that allowed me to believe that I could get sober, like a mentor of mine, or?
Your mentorship now, because I wanted people to understand that you have become a mentor to others. As you said, people calling you. Is there a story that for you, when you first say you had your 6 months and maybe someone turned to you, or a year or 2 years, or now that it helps continue to cement your sobriety and the work that you're doing?
No, to be honest with you, no, there's not like a person or something that, because, two of the biggest things that I could never conceive prior to sobriety was practicing humility and relieving myself of my ego, right? And my ego is simply easing God out. And when I ease God out, right, without these spiritual experiences that I've shared with you, being divinely inconvenienced, that was the only thing that could ever have lifted me of the obsession and rid me of the desire to get high and drink. Without those things, I guarantee you I'd still be shooting dope and drinking. So with that being said, I know without a shadow of a doubt that the moment that if I started taking credit for what might or might not be being done, I'll start thinking that I've did this, that I've created it, I'm in control of it, I'm the great I am. And now Brandon becomes Brandon's God. And then usually what happens is then Brandon will start attending Brandon's Anonymous. And then what happens is Brandon will start sponsoring Brandon. Left to my own devices, I'll believe that voice that talks to me in my own voice that makes me believe the unbelievable, that will say, hey, you've been sober like 5 years. You could have a glass of wine and totally be okay.
Yeah.
So I really, I don't, that paired with the fact that I've always suffered with pretty low self-esteem and I don't really see myself as a guy who's on the front lines doing all, I did this, I did that. All I've simply done, I believe, is I've been assigned this role by my creator, my higher power, that could completely change tomorrow. This is not up to me. I didn't even put myself in this position. No bullshit. I tripped and fell into this. I had no idea this. My get well job was washing dishes at a diner for $6 an hour my first year of sobriety. Yeah. And then someone found me. I didn't seek to do this shit. I had no idea about this. But I just share my story. I share my story. And then what happens ultimately is I think I believe, and I could be completely wrong, that I live this pretty rad life that looks somewhat appealing and desirable. And I deliver this message that does not consist of a drink or a drug. And when people hear my story, it holds depth and weight, right? You can read it in books. You can see it in the tabloids. You can type it up all over the internet. And they're like, that guy used to get high like I get high. Mm-hmm. If that guy can get clean, there's no reason why I can't. And then there's a number attached. They call it and they say, hey, if you can do it, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me? And when they ask for help, the terms of their contract have now just completely changed. Because if you recall, I said, when I say that I'm an alcoholic, all that means is I'm defiant by nature. I hate authority and I will never conform unless it becomes my idea. So when they call me asking for help and they say, if you can do it, then I can do it, it's now become their idea. And guess what? They excel at a rapid pace.
Yep.
So again, my defects have become my assets.
Yes, absolutely.
Not by my own doing.
No, and it's not, because it can't be by our own doing, because if we do it by our own doing, it's the results we had before, the behavior
exactly
before.
Yeah. And I got to the point where I knew that I no longer knew. My very best placed me here.
Yeah. It's pretty funny how often those of us that kind of are able to take that adversity to an asset that, like you said, we fucking somehow get here. I didn't ask here. It's funny that you mentioned that, because it was just between Thanksgiving and Christmas last year. A lady near and dear to me had passed away. My brother came down to spend time with my kids and I. And he goes, what is it you would really want to do with life? And so I'm writing out this list and all this stuff. And at the top of it was live a purposeful life. Right below it was leave radio to do a podcast. come just after January of the new year. I don't know if I've told you this, Mikey.
No, I didn't know that.
As we were talking with Brandon about Carlos Vieira, the gentleman that wrote his autobiography, Knockin' Doorz Down, his poor wife had sciatica so bad they had to fly back from a trip overseas. She's bedridden. He goes and does the grocery shopping, which is very unusual. And just we bump into each other. He's like, hey, so how's it going? Radio, this new company bought us. And, but yeah, I just need some other challenge. He goes, what's this podcast thing that you do that you're always telling me about? It's like, holy shit. And I hadn't really thought about that again until you were talking about your experience.
That's you being denied access to the flight at the airport.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same thing.
It's a fucking trip, man. Mikey, anything else you'd like to talk to Mr. Novak about here? Questions, stuff that you want to dig into? I know Mikey's been sitting here silent, listening to us guys.
I'm just taking it all in. People want to hear you, not me. So, so going over your Instagram, I think that you are the first person we've interviewed who has been woken up at 5 a.m. to a crashing guitar against the wall by none other than Iggy Pop. So
story that needed to be heard.
I just needed to say that. Like, how sick is that? Like, being woken up at 5 o'clock by anybody would piss me off. But if it's Iggy Pop, that's fine. That's totally cool.
I mean, I wish that I could have really taken it in at the time like I would now. Right.
No,
it's crazy. I've traveled all over the world. I've done all these a lot of really rad things.
Right.
And I don't want to say unfortunately, but unfortunately it's kind of a blur.
No, I got you. Yeah. I hear you.
But if it's but I go to these meetings and I hear people say some cliches I just get under my skin. Other ones are just they're life saving, life changing. Right. And I'll hear people say like my worst day sober is better than my best day loaded. And I'm like, I don't know what fucking kind of days you had loaded, but that's not the case for me. But the best times I've had in my life have been when I've been getting loaded, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Best memories of my life. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of them.
Right.
I forget. Yeah. But, things that like I can just look back on and just be really grateful for.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Brandon, if people want to know more about yourself,
Billy Idol gave me his fucking 24-hour coin.
Really? No shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
That pictures of that will be in my new book that's coming out.
Oh, nice. When is that? When are we?
It went to print yesterday.
Nice.
Congratulations.
So, I plan on releasing it maybe right on my 5-year anniversary, May 25th.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to that.
Billy Idol, like, hey, Brandon, here you go. Take my coin, man. Right.
Totally.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats again on the 5 years, by the way. That's good shit.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
Yep. And to anyone out there that's hit some milestones, man, those birthdays. And it's funny, I had posted up, I remember on Instagram, hey, celebrating my birthday. And somebody goes, your birthday's not 4th of July. It's in August. I'm like, totally different birthday.
See, that's like a California thing, though. That's more like, that's a West Coast thing, the birthdays. Here it is, but not so much. It's still recognized as an anniversary.
Oh, okay.
But West Coast major like birthday, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it was, and I wasn't even aware of it until somebody had hit me up. Hey, you're coming up on your birthday. I'm like, yeah, thanks for reminding me my 40th is coming up in August. They're like, no, totally different birthday.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, trip out. So, but Brandon, more free on you, website and social media.
Yeah, so like if anybody's interested in looking at what I'm up to, where I'm going, or when I'll be there, you can go to brandonnovak.com. All one word. Everything's encapsulated under that roof right there.
And get all the links for all the social media.
Everything is right there. Just go to brandonnovak.com.
Excellent. Well, Mike, anything else you would like to add before we depart here?
That's it, man. Thanks again for your time, bro.
I really enjoyed this, man. This was really rad.
Same here.
I mean, Fuck, we started at 2. It's 3:04, and I wasn't bored once. That's rad, man. These guys are great interviewers.
Oh, well, cool.
That's
That's
all
just
this guy
just
right here.
conversationalist, man. I told Mikey when he came on board, as I started this alone, I was like, he's like, oh, what do we ask people? I'm like, do we know their name? Yes. And then a little bit of their background. Yes. Perfect. That's it. Otherwise, we're just 2, 3 people or whatever it could end up being shooting the shit. Just bullshit.
And generally, people in the position where I'm at love to fucking talk anyways. So they'll do most of the work.
Right? Yeah.
And also, I'd like to leave my phone number for anybody out there that's struggling and needs help. They can reach me directly.
Absolutely.
At 610. 610. Hold on. I got 18 different numbers. 610-635-9092.
Awesome. And they can get you directly that way.
Yeah, and if I don't answer because I'm a human and I can't take a million calls and I require sleep and stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
it goes to my team.
Excellent.
And I will get back to them if it's a need to.
Awesome.
Right on.
Well, Brandon, congratulations coming up on that anniversary. We
Thanks,
love
fellas.
that. Looking forward to the book. And then we will get you a copy out to of Carlos's book, Knockin' Doors Down, for you to review. Check it out. Pass it along. If you have other people that you think that might use it, it's all tied into his foundation, the Carlos Vieira Foundation, and his Race to Be Drug-Free program, aimed at keeping kids off the streets, active in sports and other activities. And so
That's amazing.
yeah. I mean, it's people go, oh, all the proceeds. I go, no, all of it. Like he went
Like for
repurchased
real.
all the books, and just it's like, here it is. You buy a book, it's all the money goes to it. So it's
That's amazing.
yeah, it's one of the great things about being a part of this all is that it is directly going to do real work. So,
Well, I'm grateful I could, be a part and share your guys' vision for
Yes, sir.
every period in time.
All right. Well, we
Absolutely.
appreciate it. We'll stay in touch, and maybe we'll jump back on again in another 6 months or something,
I
or
love that,
sooner or
man.
later. And
Yeah.
I
you
love
know,
that.
if you get out our way, you head out to the West Coast, let us know, man. And
Yeah.
it'd be cool to sit and shoot the shit in person, grab a cup of coffee or whatever. So,
Absolutely, man.
all right, brother. We'll take
Hey,
care.
God bless, fellas.
You too.
Thanks, Brandon. You too,
Thanks,
brother.
man. Cheers.
Bye.
Knockin', knockin' those times, showing pots of rhyme.